insights make trends useful because we can see why a trend is growing when we start to look at consumer behaviour and start to look into insights. Then you can start to understand what's driving trends and changes within habits. Welcome to the O for Food's Sake podcast, where we unwrap the joys and struggles of working in the food industry so you can thrive in what you do best while sustaining a rewarding and fulfilling career or business. We are your hosts, Lucy Wager, food industry consultant,
and Amy Wilkinson, food industry coach. We've worked in the food industry for the last 20 years and we're here to share with you the benefit of our hindsight. Our podcast is for you to find new ways to cope with the daily struggles, but mostly to inspire you to work on what's not working to ultimately improve your career or business long term.
Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of O for Food's Sake. Today we're doing an episode about trends, but it's not going to be these are the latest trends.
What's the next big trend, Lucy?
Oh my God.
How many times do you get asked that
Question. Who hates that question?
Oh my God. Do you remember when we were at the conference and they asked me, they were filming me and I'm like, I was like looking at Lucy
I just thought, that is just like the worst question. So I didn't want to do an episode on like what the next big trend is. I wanted to do an episode
on what trends are.
Yeah, what trends are and what you can practically do. Like, what does it mean for us in the food industry? And
you mean, what do people actually mean when they're talking about it?
Because I think it can be quite an intimidating, that question, you feel like, oh my God, I should know the answer to this. And it's a bit of a loaded question, I find.
Yeah,
so,
yes.
First of all, let's talk about trends. What is a trend? So a trend is a long-term shift in consumer behaviour, and it's something that evolves over time. So thinking something can start very tiny and insignificant, but become something that, changes the way people do things in a very big way. I mean, it changes buying habits. A fad is something that's very short-lived. It's in the modern world can be started, driven by, basically TikTok, social media, celebrities, novelty. But there's something sort of in between those two, which is a micro trend, which starts small, but has got the potential to be really, really big. So a fad kind of could turn into a micro trend, and a micro trend could definitely turn into a bigger macro trend.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to set the scene for that. And when I was thinking about this episode, I was like, I know, I've got like a perfect example of a fad or a micro trend. It was in the 90s. Do you remember this? Delia Smith mentioned cranberries.
Yeah.
When cranberries,
you'd buy a jar of cranberry sauce, but that was it.
Yeah, cranberries really weren't a thing.
Yeah.
And overnight, everybody went wild for cranberries.
Yeah. Well, that was when we only had one way of watching things on the telly. So like everybody was watching that one thing, weren't they? Because I remember there used to be things like she'd recommend a certain pan or something and then that would sell out the next day.
Exactly. So, I mean, it's the old-fashioned form of social media and celebrity endorsement, basically. But I thought that was an interesting one because that didn't start a trend for cranberries, but it was like a micro trend that evolved. That the macro trend was kind of more fruits and different ingredients, whereas previously you would have used raisins in I can't even remember what she put them in, but whatever. And prime is also a prime example where that was the macro trend is kind of functional drinks, but they kicked off this hype on TikTok by making it really a rarity to be able to get
scarce, wasn't it?
Scarcity, that's the word I was looking for. So the other example that I had, which I thought was quite good for demonstrating this kind of macro trend and fads and micro trends within it, is bubble tea. So bubble tea used to be, I mean, who'd ever heard of bubble tea ages ago? But that is now a well-established trend. But I think bubble tea is a brilliant example of a trend that's becoming quite established. Yeah. But within it,
we've got a bubble tea shop underneath my office in Stamford.
I actually love bubble tea, and my daughter loves bubble tea, and we bought a bubble tea making set for Christmas and all sorts. Yeah. But it's a good example of within the bubble tea trend, there's lots of other little trends. It's ripe for that kind of thing, like glitter and things that are quite faddy, that aren't going to go anywhere, but are kind of riding on the wave of a bigger trend. So I think those little intricacies are really important to understand within product development setting, because you can then start to understand where you should be playing and what products you should be developing and what ingredients you should be using, and understanding, is this a fad? Is it an early stage microtrend, and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So the food people are great at this because they plot things on, whether it's established. I can't remember what the terminology is, but it's really useful when you see like whether it's an emerging trend or how established it is. And I think having that visual is really useful.
Yeah.
The other thing I just wanted to touch on, because we've talked about this quite a lot, is insights and how insights play into the arena of trends. So insights make trends useful because we can see why a trend is growing when we start to look at consumer behavior and start to look into insights. Then you can start to understand what's driving trends and changes within habits.
Yeah. So you kind of get your trends, you get your data, and then you can pull together like, this is a light bulb moment of why X is happening, or this is our hypothesis a lot of the time, because you don't know exactly. Ever.
And that's why I think trends can be quite fun, because you can start to kind of play little games and be like, I was thinking, I'm going to write down what trends I think are going to like flop and what I think is going to like really grow, and then
like put it in an envelope,
put it in like a time capsule, and then like dig it up in 5 years' time.
Yeah. Well, you're right though, because I remember like in the early noughties, like when we were talking about functional ingredients and this, that, and the other, when we were like, oh, that's, that nutraceuticals, all of that stuff, we were like, oh, that's never going to be a thing. And now everything's got like lion's mane in it, or this, that, and the other.
It's a brilliant example, because I was thinking about this morning on my drive from school, knowing we were going to record this, because I was thinking like there's things that happen outside of our control that like really impact trends, obviously. And I was thinking like, because there's been lots of, think about the M&S brain food launch, and they've got like glow, and, so functional health is really having a moment.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, if COVID hadn't have happened, would we be where we are with that? Because we've been talking about functional health for many years. I mean, I remember I did a project at school, probably in 1996, which was called, I remember the name of it. It was called Food for Thought. I mean, look at me now, 16-year-old Lucy. And I really loved doing this project. It was the best thing that I think I ever did at school. And it was all about functional foods, which were like, really novel at the time. And Benecol had like just come out, I think.
Yeah.
So functional foods have been around a long time.
Yeah. My dissertation was putting, it was basically nutritionally enhanced mashed potatoes for old people. But, like it was, the principle was the same. Yeah.
But I do think it's sped up because of COVID, because we've all become so much more aware of what can happen if there's a major global health pandemic.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask about two micro trends that I think would be interesting to see if they grow into bigger trends or they die a death. So the two that I pulled out are, and you've already mentioned it actually, mushrooms.
Yeah.
So the thing about mushrooms, that, the benefit is this kind of focus is the thing that comes to mind now, which I think is amazing. So mood enhancing and ability to focus, and especially because of all of the neurodivergence conversations that are happening and how we can harness our brain. So that is a big tick in the box for the mushroom trend.
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? Because I'm not now. I'm taking different supplements to try and help my ADHD brain. But I was taking lion's mane gummies because I still kind of see that in the medicine world. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like rather than the food world. But I totally see where the gap is. And actually yesterday I was lucky enough to have a chef's lunch, and it had lion's mane. It was some sort of like I can't remember, it was like a paste or something like that, and the flavour was amazing. But I know a lot of people don't like mushrooms, but I
But
like mushrooms.
I love mushrooms, and in the right context, it
Yeah.
could taste amazing. But in a different context, it doesn't taste amazing. So I'm not convinced about the mushroom translating into drinks and that kind of thing, because it
Yeah.
is a very distinct taste.
Yeah.
So I think there's a place for it, but I'm not sure how big it's going to be. And it's also difficult to make actual claims against mushrooms at the moment. So
Yeah.
that's going to be an interesting one to watch.
All right, folks, we're going to take a quick breather here to hear from our fantastic sponsors. They help keep the podcast going, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Ensuring food safety and quality is crucial. That's why businesses trust Microsearch Laboratories, part of the IFP Labs Group. UCAS accredited Microsearch offers microbiological, nutritional and allergen testing for food, drink and water, delivering fast results and expert support. With over 30 years of experience, trusted by leading manufacturers and retailers, and a commitment to sustainability, Microsearch is your partner in product safety. Visit micro-search.co.uk to learn more. As we all know, the food industry never stands still, and it's not getting any easier. More pressure, tighter deadlines, and endless spreadsheets. Sound familiar? Point 74 is the perfect solution for cutting through today's product development challenges, enabling teams to create, cost, comply, and collaborate with ease. Used by 1 in 5 of the UK's top food manufacturers and 2 of the top 5 retailers, it's the software behind the label of your favourite food products, delivering improved quality, margins and processes, all in one seamless system. And we're back. Thanks for sticking with us. Let's dive right back in.
And then the other one is edible packaging. So we need to reduce the amount of packaging that we're using. What do you think of edible packaging, Amy?
Well, I'm sort of like it's a great idea, but I don't know. I'm not convinced.
How practical it is.
No, yeah, how
And
practical is it?
The thing for me is like I'm buying the food for the food, not to eat the packaging. I mean, I don't know. I think it's going to be, I mean, it's obviously very sustainable, but
Yeah.
I'm not sure how
But then
healthy.
if you're eating the packaging, then like, is that...
I suppose it becomes part of the product, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So maybe that, I just can't see how that, I think there's better ways of being sustainable.
It's such a difficult whole area, isn't it, on the whole packaging thing? Because it's like, yeah, we could have biodegradable, but nobody, you know, so I think that is a massive problem, isn't it?
It is, but there's also bigger, if you're trying to solve the sustainability problem, there are bigger problems to solve before you need to go to edible packaging, which actually brings me on to, so one of the things I wanted to talk about was about how, so one of the negative things about trends in our world, in the food industry, is you're almost bombarded by it. And then there's this pressure and it's like, oh my God, I should know what the biggest trend is and all this kind of thing. But I wanted to talk about, what do you do with this information that you get to make it useful for you in your everyday?
I think that's a really good point, because if I think back to, you know, when I used to get, it's kind of in my insight role and my MPD role, where you'd get like the information, say from the food people or whoever, and there's so much information.
Quite overwhelming, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like, how do I actually translate this into something that I can present to a retailer
and is relevant to you? So what one trick is actually what we just did there. So I can't remember the actual terminology, but it's like attention test. So edible packaging, yes, sustainability is really important, but so is health. And so is like consumers just wanting to, you know, make a choice on what they want to eat. So you kind of weigh up what's the bigger problem and which is going to solve it to determine which is most important to you. Then you can use a 5 C's checklist. So consumer, context, cost, compatibility and compliance, and apply it to your business. So you know, what consumer problem is this solving, and how does that link to your business? What's the context? So how does edible packaging fit into your business overall? Is it viable from a cost perspective? Is it compatible? So can you actually do it? And does it meet your legal requirements? And it's very obvious, but it can just be a kind of bring you back down to earth moment. This is a really interesting one. So having something physical in your workplace or at home, and create a trends pyramid. So where you've got like really emerged trends at the bottom, and then really new emerging micro trends at the top, and plot the trends, but have it so you can move things around and watch things move, but also start putting on there new launches that are answering those trends. So like, for example, brain food going into functional health. So you can start to see like the impact of what's happening in the marketplace.
Yeah.
Because there's something about not hitting the market too early with trends and being too early to be mass market. So podology is a perfect example of like hitting a trend too early and being, you know, not mass market enough to be successcul.
Yeah, and I'll just pick you up on that because I always hear you
doing
podology a disservice. You needed to be that early adopter. You know, there always needs to be the challengers and the early adopters, and then what often happens is the big boys come along and replicate it all.
Yes. So I didn't mean it negatively, but but it's important to say, because if you want to be launching products successfully into the market, you almost want to wait for that tipping point when you can see that actually this has been bubbling away. I was just going to say, actually, a good example is bubble tea. You know, bubble tea has been bubbling away for a while, and the market is ripe for, you know, mainstream products to come into the market.
Yeah.
So another one is AI and online tools can really help us. So you can watch for, you know, like trend listening and see what people are searching for. We've been doing that for ages. But it can help you spot when a trend is kind of reaching its peak or reaching that tipping point. So really worth looking at. And just having that recognition that trends go through a cycle and seeing it as not an intimidating thing, but something that's interesting. And maybe we should have more conversations about trends. Maybe I'm the only person that hates that question about what's...
Oh, I don't think you are. And let us know, listeners. I'm fairly certain there's plenty of people out there that dread being asked that question, and particularly if it's like somebody, a customer or something that says, "Then what's the next big thing?" And you're like, "Oh no."
Yeah. Well, I'm going to answer the question because obviously I've been thinking about it.
Well, I was going to say, so what is your prediction then for like, what are the trends you're most excited about?
So I'm really excited about the mood enhancing and nootropics and adaptogens and that whole movement kind of linking with health and how we can just treat ourselves better. And last year I was talking to a nootropics business who are launching a product that's, you know, a replacement for coffee, basically, which is which I find really exciting because caffeine isn't great for me. And
no, and I feel like this is a really great space because there's so many people that are really sober curious these days, aren't there? Like we used to just have booze for this sort of thing. And I mean, I've done dry January when we're recording this. And actually, you know, I've had a couple of CBD drinks here and there. Like I can see for those people that actually want to make an informed decision, but might just, you know, want to relax a little bit with something, then there's definitely a need.
Yeah, there is. And I also think like hormone health and menopause, and there's been so little research in, I mean, we've got a whole episode on the menopause, but you know, it's a really underfunded area of medicine. But I think there's a real role for food to play in helping women go through those changes in life and educating. So I think that is just a really, really exciting area. But the other big one for me is about tech and AI linked to sustainability and what's going to happen. I mean, there is so much exciting stuff happening in that area. So that's one that I'm really excited about.
I want a fridge where I just go to it. What's in here? Can you just do the recipe for me? That's what I want.
What do I need? I mean, me and Sam fell out about food shopping. Food shopping is a real issue for me in my house. I hate like, no, what do I need? I don't know.
Yeah, I do use AI to do my shopping list, just saying. Yeah, I get it to do meal plans and stuff.
Yeah, but it doesn't know what's in my fridge. No,
that's what I mean. That's the next step, isn't it?
That's what I need. I was like, oh my God, have you got something that I don't know about? Right. So hopefully that has given you a bit of a pep. Is that the right word? Bit of a buzz on trends and inspired you to think about them in a slightly different way and have a play with them. Get a pyramid on the wall.
I really like that idea, and I worked with a team recently and they were inspired after the day we'd had together, and they were going to put on, like, they were going to have a wall that had like ideas as they had them and things that they saw, and it's almost, it's almost that, but with a bit more structure on it to, really think through what the overarching trends are.
Yeah, but I think it's that having it in front of you all the time, but in a way that doesn't just become part of the furniture. Like it's like sort of an interactive piece of furniture.
Yeah. Well, I hope listeners are also going away thinking, actually, I've got a better idea of what I'm going to say when someone says what's the next big trend.
Yeah.
So, fabulous. Thank you, Lucy. And we will see everybody next time.
See you next time. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it, rate and review us. It really helps us reach more food industry pros like you.
For more resources, head over to our website, overfoodsake.co.uk, and join our mailing list to stay in touch.
And if you'd like to connect with us, come say hello on LinkedIn. We're both there, Lucy Wager and Amy Wilkinson.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.